the cassette deck. For so many of us, it was the beating heart of our stereo systems, the portal to endless hours of personalized music, the silent partner in countless late-night mixtape sessions. We spent hours, meticulously crafting our perfect recordings, chasing that elusive, pristine playback. We believed, truly believed, that these intricate machines, these paragons of analog engineering, would just keep getting better, evolving with us into an audiophile future. But something else was already evolving, something quietly waiting in the wings to usher in a new era, an era that would render even the most magnificent cassette deck, well, silent. Today, we're going to pull back the velvet curtain on 7 cassette decks that, by all accounts, should have lived forever, 7 machines that pushed the boundaries of what was possible with magnetic tape, only to find themselves outpaced by a revolution they never saw coming. First up, a name synonymous with cassette perfection, a deck that many still consider the pinnacle, the Nakamichi ZX9. By 1985, Nakamichi was already a legend. Their Dragon had captivated the audiophile world, and the ZX9 was its slightly more understated, but no less formidable, sibling. This wasn't just a cassette deck, it was a precision instrument. 3 motors, direct drive for the capstan, a dual capstan closed-loop transport system that made tape flutter a bad memory. You'd press play, and the tape would glide, almost silently, through the mechanism, a testament to Japanese engineering at its absolute finest. Dolby B and C noise reduction, of course, but Nakamichi had their own flavor, their own calibration magic that made those recordings sound so much clearer, so much more dynamic. The sound was rich, detailed, with a bass response that would genuinely surprise anyone who thought cassettes were inherently lacking. It was designed for the serious enthusiast, the kind of person who meticulously calibrated their bias and equalization for every single tape. You'd spend $1,000, sometimes more, for one of these, and you felt like you were getting a piece of audio art. The ZX9, with its distinctive dark faceplate and glowing green meters, felt like a commitment, a promise of fidelity in an analog world. It was built to last, a testament to what obsessive engineering could achieve. But even Nakamichi, with all their genius, couldn't stop the tide. Then there was the Technics RS-1500 US, a machine that, even today, looks like it escaped from a recording studio. Introduced in 1978, this wasn't a compact cassette deck in the traditional sense, it was a monster, a high-fidelity open-reel deck, shrunk down and refined for the compact cassette. The sheer audacity of Technics to try and bring that level of professional engineering to a consumer format was breathtaking. This thing had a 3-motor, direct-drive transport, much like the Nakamichi, but it was its unique, isolated loop transport that set it apart. Imagine a tape path so stable, so precise, that it practically eliminated wow and flutter. The large, illuminated meters, the substantial weight, over 20 pounds, all spoke to its uncompromising build quality. For the serious audiophile, the RS-1500 US offered near-studio sound reproduction. It was the choice of engineers and musicians who wanted to monitor their mixes, or capture their performances, with incredible accuracy. You'd load a good quality chrome tape into this machine, hit record, and the results were indistinguishable from many open-reel recordings to the casual ear. It wasn't cheap, often commanding prices north of $1,000, but for those who valued ultimate fidelity, it was an investment. It demonstrated that the compact cassette, if handled with enough care and precision, could truly sing. But its very ambition, its dedication to an analog ideal, would soon become a burden. Akai gave us a different kind of marvel with the GXC570D, arriving in 1982. If the Nakamichi was about clinical precision and the Technics about professional ambition, the Akai was about making your life easier, without sacrificing quality. This was the auto-reverse dream machine for mixtape makers. Imagine this, you've spent hours curating the perfect soundtrack for a long drive, a party, or just a quiet evening. With most decks, when side A ended, you had to physically flip the tape. Not with the GXC570D. Its reverse play and record capabilities were simply groundbreaking. It wasn't just a simple reversal, Akai employed a unique, bidirectional record/playback head, ensuring consistent sound quality in both directions. No more wonky azimuth issues when the tape flipped. It had a 3-motor, closed-loop double capstan system, ensuring that precious tape glided smoothly. The glass and crystal ferrite heads were legendary for their durability and excellent frequency response, especially with metal tapes. The front panel, with its brushed aluminum and large, satisfyingly chunky buttons, felt substantial, serious. This deck was about convenience, yes, but convenience without compromise. It brought a level of sophistication to the everyday act of recording, making the entire experience more seamless, more enjoyable. The price, around $900, made it a significant purchase, but for many, the sheer practicality and quality were worth it. It was a peak example of a cassette deck designed for the real world, for the passionate amateur. But its ultimate fate was already being shaped by forces outside the world of tape. Fast forward a few years to 1989, and we find the Denon DRM-800XSE, a machine that represents, in many ways, the final generation of obsessive tape engineering. By this point, the writing was on the wall for the cassette, but companies like Denon were still pouring their hearts and souls into making these machines as good as humanly possible. The DRM-800XSE was built like a tank, with a heavy, resonance-resistant chassis designed to minimize vibrations. It featured a 3-head design, allowing for real-time monitoring of your recordings, a crucial feature for serious tape enthusiasts. Dolby B, C, and HX Pro were all on board, meticulously implemented to wring every last drop of dynamic range and high-frequency extension from your tapes. Denon's focus on component quality was evident throughout, from the oxygen-free copper wiring to the high-grade capacitors. It was a deck designed for maximum performance, a no-compromise approach in a world that was already starting to compromise on analog. The sound was incredibly clean, with precise imaging and a wide sound stage. It was one of those decks that made you reconsider what a cassette could truly achieve, especially with good quality metal tape. It retailed for around $700, a testament to the fact that even as the format waned, the pursuit of perfection never stopped for these engineers. It was a magnificent, bittersweet farewell to an era. Then there's the Marantz SD9000 from 1978. Marantz, a name synonymous with lush, warm sound, brought their own unique flavor to the cassette deck. The SD9000 was a strikingly beautiful machine, with its classic Marantz aesthetic, a champagne gold faceplate, large, glowing meters, and those wonderfully tactile toggle switches. But it wasn't just a pretty face. This deck was a technical marvel for its time, incorporating Dolby B, C, and S noise reduction, an ambitious move for a deck of that era, especially S-Type, which offered a significant leap in noise reduction. It featured a dual capstan closed-loop transport, much like the high-end decks we've discussed, ensuring stable tape handling. The sound was unmistakably Marantz, warm, inviting, with a rich mid-range and smooth highs. It was the kind of deck you could listen to for hours without fatigue, perfectly suited for the cozy den or living room. It made your mixtapes sound like they were recorded by professionals, not just you in your bedroom. The cost, often around $1,000, placed it firmly in the premium category, but it offered a blend of aesthetic elegance and high-fidelity performance that few could match. It embodied the golden age of HiFi, where form and function were equally revered. It glowed in the dark, a beacon of analog bliss. And then, one day, those lights began to dim. From the fjords of Norway came Tandberg, and their TCD430A, hitting the market in the early 90s. Tandberg wasn't just another HiFi manufacturer, they were known for their meticulous engineering and innovative solutions, often prioritizing ultra-high fidelity tape transport. The TCD430A was no exception. It featured a unique, open-loop dual capstan transport, designed for incredibly low wow and flutter. Tandberg also championed their Actilinear recording system, which aimed to minimize distortion and extend frequency response at high recording levels. This wasn't just about noise reduction, it was about ensuring that the signal itself was as clean and uncolored as possible. The deck's minimalist, industrial design spoke to its Scandinavian roots, understated elegance, focused entirely on performance. It was a serious piece of equipment for the serious listener, often favored by classical music aficionados for its transparency and dynamic range. You'd find it in high-end audio setups, often paired with equally high-end amplifiers and speakers, where every nuance of the recording could be appreciated. The price tag, often in the $700 to $900 range, reflected its boutique, high-performance status. It was a testament to the belief that the cassette format, even in its twilight years, could still be refined to an astonishing degree. It was a last, glorious gasp of analog perfection. And finally, we arrive at the Sony TCK555ESX from 1988. The ES designation from Sony always meant something special, elevated standard. These were consumer decks built with a near-studio quality in mind, designed to impress even the most jaded audiophile. The TCK555ESX was a beast, weighing in at nearly 20 pounds, thanks to its substantial copper-plated chassis and excellent shielding. It boasted a 3-head design, direct drive, and a closed-loop dual capstan transport, all meticulously engineered for precision. Dolby B, C, and HX Pro were standard, implemented with Sony's typical attention to detail. The frequency response was astonishingly wide, especially with metal tapes, often extending well beyond 20 kHz. The sound was incredibly detailed, with excellent stereo separation and a deep, articulate bass. It was a deck that could genuinely threaten the quality of many lower-end open-reel recorders, delivering a level of fidelity that few thought possible from a compact cassette. For around $800, it offered an incredible value for the performance it delivered. It represented the peak of consumer cassette deck technology, a statement piece that proclaimed, "We can do this. We can make cassettes sound magnificent." So, there you have them. 7 titans of tape, machines that were designed with such care, such precision, such devotion, that they should have transcended their format. They offered unparalleled sound quality, exquisite engineering, and a tangible connection to our music. They were built to last, built to impress, built to be the heart of our listening experience for decades. But the truth, the quiet, undeniable truth, is that something far more disruptive than any internal design flaw or market misstep had arrived, and it had arrived years before these magnificent machines ever hit their stride. In 1982, a new kid appeared on the block, a shiny, deceptively simple disc that promised perfect sound forever. The compact disc. When the CD first landed, the initial sound quality wasn't always superior to a well-recorded, high-end cassette. In fact, many early CDs were criticized for sounding harsh or sterile compared to the warm analog glow of vinyl or tape. But the CD offered something else: convenience, durability, and a perceived future-proof quality. No more tape hiss, no more wow and flutter, no more flipping sides, no more head demagnetization, no more painstakingly cleaning the tape path. And crucially, no more degradation with repeated play. You could skip tracks instantly, unlike the laborious fast-forward and rewind of tape. This new digital format, with its tiny laser reading zeros and ones, fundamentally changed consumer expectations. Suddenly, the meticulously engineered transports, the advanced noise reduction systems, the precision record heads of these cassette decks, while still incredible feats of engineering, became secondary to the sheer convenience and perceived purity of digital. Why spend $1,000 on a machine that played an inherently noisy and fragile format when you could buy a CD player for less and have perfect sound? The arrival of the CD in 1982 didn't immediately kill the cassette deck market, but it certainly set the timer. For years, cassettes coexisted, especially for car audio and mixtapes, but the momentum was undeniably shifting. Audiophile budgets, once allocated to the finest Nakamichis and Denons, began migrating to CD players and their ever-improving digital-to-analog converters. The engineers at these companies, who had poured their lives into perfecting analog tape, found their innovations increasingly sidelined by the march of digital. It wasn't about a lack of vision or skill, it was about a fundamental paradigm shift. The formats these decks played, no matter how brilliantly, were simply being supplanted by something fundamentally different. So, these glorious machines, these triumphs of analog engineering, ultimately became victims of progress. They didn't die because they weren't good enough, they died because a new technology offered a different, more compelling future, one that ultimately rendered the very concept of magnetic tape for consumer audio obsolete. They outlived their format in the sense that they achieved perfection just as the world was moving on, a bittersweet end for some of the greatest audio equipment ever made. If you've ever loved the tactile experience of analog audio, consider hitting that subscribe button.